This is Hemant.
And Jessica.
And you're listening to the Friendly Atheist Podcast. Please go to patreon.com/Friendly Atheist Podcast. Get your ad-free and bonus episodes. And before we get to any of the news stories, I realized last week when we were recording, the white smoke came out, but we didn't actually know who the Pope was other than a CNN headline or something. So we never actually talked about it. But since you've now had a week to digest, any thoughts on the Pope? The Pope?
That's pretty good.
I'm not the first.
No. It's fun. It truly feels akin to like we won the Stanley Cup or something like that, and people are just sort of having
Chicago, you mean?
Yeah.
America?
No, Chicago specifically.
Okay.
We love our hometown boys. But I read something interesting that the fact that they elected an American Pope is probably a bad sign for America, because if we were still the actual leaders in any meaningful way, they would not also want us to lead the fucking Catholic Church.
Right, which is why they historically have not voted for an American
Right.
Pope. It's like, you already have enough power. We don't need to give you more.
Exactly.
So congratulations on America's decline.
It's deeply strange, I will say, to be like, oh, here's a picture of him at the 2007 White Sox championship game or whatever. Like, it was...
He's a normal Chicago
He's just
dude.
like a person who like went to high school around here, and like that.
It's amazing how many local journalists, local TV stations are like, we spoke with someone who went to school with the Pope.
And it's just a 70-year-old dude in his living room with like transition lenses, just be like, yeah, I don't know, I cheated off his homework sometimes.
His brother's like a total mega cultist.
Oh, is he?
Yep. And this is what I've been a little bothered by is when I see all these headlines. Not the Chicago stuff. That's just amusing.
Yeah.
But maybe there's hope. This Pope will be amazing and all that. It's like, even if he's like a good Pope, we are, and by that I mean relatively liberal compared to what he could be. What that still means is you are talking about someone who, if he follows the Vatican rules, opposes same-sex marriage, doesn't think trans people exist, like take all that Catholic dogma. That's the best case scenario,
right.
Like someone who still signs on to that agenda. And so the question then is, okay, well, is he going to do anything to change any of that? Because it is hard to move the Vatican. But I think everyone wants to just hope that since we don't know really anything about this guy, maybe something good will happen, which is, I think, a dangerous move to make. I know enough about the guy to know that, okay, there's no reason to get super excited about what this is going to mean.
No, but I do think there is space for optimism in such dark times. I think it's okay for people to be hopeful at this point, and if they're let down.
I guess my question is, hopeful about what for the Catholic Church?
Yeah, that's a good point. Golly, that is a very good point.
Because again, the Pope being liberal, quote unquote, which I don't think he is. But if he is, what does that even mean in a church that requires you to believe a lot of very horrible things?
Right. But I think there is an important group that you're sort of discounting, which is the people who are kind of culturally Catholic and have been going to church, and it's part of their kind of everyday lives. It's not reasonable to think that they're just going to leave their religion. That's very difficult for most people to do. And the reality is, like, I'm thinking specifically of two people I work with who are Catholic, but don't abide by any of the, anti-abortion kind of shit.
Which is more than half of, like, American Catholics.
And of course we sit here and question, well, why are you part of the church? But that's cultural. That's complicated. That is ingrained in generations of family tradition, and momentum has a lot of weight. People just keep doing the thing they're doing.
Keep in mind that the thing that everyone liked when everyone started treating Pope Francis as some savior of, I don't know, not the worst it could be.
Yeah.
That took about 6 months after he was made Pope before he said the who am I to judge, stuff like that. So it may be a while before we find out, okay, what does the new guy mean for the direction of the church? Which things is he going to shift the Catholic world on? We'll see. It's very early.
I don't know. Well, yeah, we'll see. It's so it's very surreal. I will say that. Like, an American pope does not feel like a thing that can be. You know what I mean? It's just, yeah, it's very
That
strange.
guy plays Wordle. He's probably eating hot dogs. Like,
he's a fucking White Sox fan, man.
Yeah.
Like, how am I supposed to like wrap that in my little head?
yeah, he knows what it's like to be a loser. There you go.
I was gonna say,
all the other popes have like their favorite soccer teams. This guy has the historically worst baseball team in history.
I was going to make a joke about maybe all of a sudden the stands will start filling up in Comiskey again because they're giving away tickets to them. Anyway, that's Sports Talk with Jess and Hammett.
Not worth it. All right. Let's talk about this story. This is a wild story that kind of broke out into the open this week, but it's been festering for a while here. Let me give you some background so the story actually makes sense. Remember Josh Shapiro when he was Attorney General of Pennsylvania? He opened up like a grand jury investigation to investigate the Catholic Church. Mm-hmm. And when that report got released, this is like, 2018-ish? When that report got released by the grand jury, it was this damning indictment of the cover-ups of abuse that had been going on in the Catholic Church and how they had protected priests or covered up what priests were.
So a brand new story we've never heard before.
Right. And the thing is, that opened the door for other states to do their own grand jury investigations into the Catholic Church. It was like a rebirth of what happened decades earlier.
A renaissance, if you will.
Yes. So in 2020... the same Attorney General's office, still led by Josh Shapiro, also separately opened a grand jury investigation into Jehovah's Witness congregations across their state. And much like he did with the Catholic Church, the goal was, I want to prevent sexual abuse of children. There's reason to believe religious leaders in this religion are also either committing crimes or covering them up, right? Damning stuff. And one of the things we learned along the way is that the Jehovah's Witnesses kept internal records about people in their fold who were accused of sexual abuse, but they would not share that list publicly, even though it could have prevented further abuse.
This is why you do not leave a paper trail, gang.
I don't know what they're doing.
If you have something to talk about, you pick up that phone.
But one of the people that the investigators in the Attorney General's office spoke to is a guy named Mark O'Donnell. He is a former Jehovah's Witness who has been kind of a watchdog of the church ever since he left. He's spent his time trying to sound the alarm. Yeah. He's written about this stuff. And he has said publicly, I was interviewed by the investigators because I'm one of the go-to guys. I'm paraphrasing. I'm one of the go-to guys for whistleblowers within the organization. They come to me because they can't go to their leaders.
Sure.
So they tell him about stuff. So I don't know what role he played in leading to any charges or anything, but he was interviewed, one of many people who was interviewed. Mm-hmm. But in 2022, Josh Shapiro, Attorney General at the time still, I believe, he announced criminal charges stemming from that investigation. This is the first batch of criminal charges from the grand jury investigation. Mm-hmm. 4 men were charged with abusing a total of 19 victims. In one case, I think, that even included their own children.
No.
Yeah, and here's the thing, many more charges would follow after that. At least 16 people associated with the Jehovah's Witnesses have since been charged in that specific investigation. Mm-hmm. Okay, so as you can imagine, this creates all kinds of concerns for Jehovah's Witness congregations within Pennsylvania and outside of it, but definitely within the state, like, oh no, they're looking into us. And they're worried, not about the victims, but about like, oh shit, what about our legal liability here? Right. So cut to February of 2023, because now those charges have been filed against the first batch of people. Mm-hmm. And these, there were 11 congregations in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. And they're like, we should talk to lawyers about what our obligations are here. And like, what do we need to do? What happens when the investigators knock on our doors? Uh-huh. Like, what are we supposed to do? What are we not supposed to do? Because our religious beliefs, stuff like this.
Okay.
They're trying to figure out, hey, lawyers, if someone knocks at our door and tells us hand stuff over, do we have to
What is my legal obligation?
What do we have to do? Which is a fine phone call to make with your lawyers. Mm-hmm. But so they arranged a conference call. It was representatives from 11 congregations in that county and 2 of their lawyers. I don't know where the guys came from, but like 2 of their lawyers. Mm. it turns out one of the representatives was like, you know who would want to hear this call? Mark O'Donnell. So he sent along the Zoom call information, the login information to Mark O'Donnell. Why would that person do this? I don't know. Presumably it was not an accident. They're like, hey, since we're talking about this issue, and I'm speculating, maybe someone there's like, I don't trust that these people are on their best behavior necessarily. I don't like cover-ups happening in this denomination. So this guy should listen in. He might get something useful out of this. Maybe that's why. I don't know.
I love this.
I doubt you accidentally add Mark O'Donnell to your Signal chat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like it happened on purpose. So who did it? I don't know. No one's talking. But Mark O'Donnell is like, oh yeah, I'm joining this call. He signs in early. He doesn't hide it. Like he's using his personal phone number to sign in. But like when people log into the call, no one says anything. He's not on video. He's just there listening in.
So you can see his little square, but he's not on camera.
You can't see his square because he's just, if you look at the list of participants, it'll show you, oh yeah, there's a bunch of people here. A lot of them are on mute. You're not checking in every phone number, just like anyone who's ever done one of those Zoom calls, right? So he listens in on this call on mute. He's not chiming in. He's not saying anything. And then, like, I don't know if this was that night or like a day or two later, he does his normal like YouTube live streams where he's talking about stuff and he says, yeah, this is what I heard on the phone call. And by and large, I don't know what he said on the call. That live stream has now been taken down.
Oh.
But
he did speak?
Personally, he spoke about it later on.
I see. Okay, thank you.
But like online comments suggest that, among other things, the lawyers discussed something called a litigation hold with the leaders, telling them, preserve your documents, do not shred anything, right? Like you could get in big trouble for that, which again, normal lawyer thing to say, but that's interesting. So these lawyers are saying they may investigate you, and you need to hold on to everything you have.
Yeah, you need to be upfront with that.
They also discussed how settling these sorts of cases could work if they wanted to go down that route. Okay. I don't know that there was anything said on there that would be shocking to anybody. These are lawyers saying, hey, look, we've dealt with these kind of cases before. Yeah. Here's your options. Here's what you should do.
Frankly, it sounds like a very boring Zoom call to pop in on.
As far as I can tell, it's not like anyone said, hey, we got a couple dudes in my congregation who are totally doing some horrible stuff. It's not like they were saying that.
Yeah.
But ever since, like, apparently, very quickly after this call ends, the people in charge of the witnesses in this county, they're like, wait a minute, what phone number was that was logged on? And hearing any of this, oh, by the way, he was talking about it on YouTube a day or two later. He was in on that call. We know he was in on this call and listening to us. So they then filed a lawsuit against Mark O'Donnell. And
what?
Yeah. They filed this lawsuit.
On what grounds?
On the grounds that he committed an invasion of privacy that causes reputational harm to them. Reputational harm. Not the sex abuse and the cover-up, but like this dude listened in on our call with our lawyer, and that could hurt us. Really?
I'm sorry. I'm deeply confused
about going.
Why it's a loss, why it's litigation worthy.
They're saying we didn't invite this guy to the call, and he barged in on our private attorney-client privilege phone call, and how dare he do that?
I guess that's fair.
We'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
So that's quite a claim, given that all of this is happening because they're the ones that may have committed abuse or their leaders were covering it up. Mm-hmm. But they also say in their lawsuit, it is very hard for us to chat with our attorneys over Zoom these days because Mark made it impossible to have online phone conferences, and we now have to meet in person, quote, to avoid additional interceptions. Never.
I mean, at one point they could just check and see who's on the call and make sure they know everybody, and they could probably pretty easily kick somebody off that call.
Or they could just not give login information to people who they can't trust, but apparently someone's like, I don't think you should trust these people.
Well, it sounds like none of them are particularly trustworthy if they're having a conference with their lawyers.
Based on what I saw, I'm like, this sounds not like a real problem, but like old people don't know how computers work problem. It's very easy to solve if you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
But they are saying Mark O'Donnell broke 4 laws, each of which requires a payout to them of over $700,000.
What?
Yeah. So
Is it 4 or 5?
4 different charges.
4.
They
Oh my
say
God.
he violated
So $2.8 million?
$2.8 million, violated wiretapping laws, privacy laws, and we're entitled to whatever, $700,000 a pop plus legal fees.
Oh my God.
It very much sounds to me like the Republicans who said this journalist barged in on our Signal chat where we were discussing classified war plans.
Yeah.
And the journalist is like, you literally invited me to the call.
Right.
Maybe accidentally, but you did it.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, well, once the journalist realized what was going on, he backed out. Once he confirmed, like, wait, these people don't know I'm here. They really are this dumb.
I would have stayed there
Right?
forever.
That is an argument many people made, but he's
And
like,
just randomly like text things like X-Flight and just see what they do.
once that journalist was like, oh, they don't know I'm here, and they are discussing things they should not be discussing over an unclassified like chat on Signal, he's like, I've confirmed this now. I don't need to be on this chat anymore, and I don't want to be on this chat. And then he published that thing about Pete Hegseth, and of course, nothing happened. But this is now what Mark O'Donnell says in his response to that lawsuit. He says he didn't violate any laws because he was invited to the meeting.
Yeah.
And because the plaintiffs waived any expectation of privacy they may have had with respect to the meeting, it's not like they said anything on the call. Like, he got the login information from somebody. He didn't hack into it.
No.
He was invited. So you can't even say he, like, eavesdropped on it. He was invited to the call. This is his argument. Furthermore, he says, they were aware of my presence shortly after the call ended.
Oh.
I don't know how long after, but like soon after. But they didn't say anything at the time. If this was such a private phone call, like they didn't, his YouTube video where he talked about what he heard on there.
Yeah.
They didn't ask him to take that down until about a year later. Yeah. And he also argued that a lot of the stuff he said in the YouTube video is stuff he knew before that call even occurred, just kind of setting the groundwork for why they were having this phone call, what the big issues are. And this week, the reason I bring this up now, this week, Mark O'Donnell finally issued a press release talking publicly about this lawsuit, announcing that a trial date has now been set for October. He reiterated that he did not break any laws. And he says, and this is important, the witnesses really want him to reveal his sources. Not just who invited him to the call, but who have you talked to within our congregations? This is what he writes.
Do they have that right?
Who knows? Here's what he writes. In the litigation, the Jehovah's Witnesses have demanded that I name every Jehovah's Witness I have communicated with in the last 5 years regarding the faith of the Jehovah's Witnesses. Obviously, that would reveal my journalistic sources, and I will not do so. As a reporter, protecting my sources is essential. Because of this, I have been forced to hire expert legal counsel for my defense, with costs expected to be more than $150,000. ... My mission has always been to shed light on these crimes, force change, and do so without cost to the public. While I am limited in what I can say now, I'm grateful that the public can see what has happened for themselves. So he did not, to my surprise, he has not asked anybody for donations. There's no GoFundMe for this right now.
Really?
He's not asking people to contribute to his legal defense. I think right now his goal is just to make sure everyone knows this is happening.
Sure.
I did reach out to him days ago for comment. He did not respond to me yet. I'm kind of curious why he's putting this out now, because the lawsuit was filed like 2023 and his response was official like more than half a year ago.
Oh, that is
so
strange.
It's like, okay, so why is this the week you're going public with this? I don't really know. It was sealed for quite some time, the lawsuit, and then it got unsealed because Mark O'Donnell's like, oh no, I want people to be able to see this lawsuit. So the version of their lawsuit where they say, here's what we said on the call that he was not supposed to hear, that's all been redacted, even in the unsealed version. So I don't know what they're mad about. Part of the lawsuit they filed also includes a transcript of Mark O'Donnell's YouTube video where he talked about all this. But when they get to the part where he discussed stuff said on their call, also blacked out.
Redacted.
You can't really see what's going on. I could not find a separate backup copy of the video anywhere. I'm sure that exists somewhere, but I haven't seen it. But even without those answers, though, even without knowing what exactly they're mad about that he revealed, I think this is worth watching. I mean, a journalist was given access to a phone call by a participant, reported on what he heard, and now a very wealthy religious group is trying to basically bankrupt him or at least scare him away from the work he does. Which is appalling. And again, why are we on this call in the first place? Because the Jehovah's Witnesses were trying to figure out how to deal with allegations involving the abuse of children committed or covered up by their own leaders. And instead of looking into a mirror, confronting themselves, they're going after the one person in this whole story who is doing everything in his power to protect survivors and prevent further abuse.
Wow. That's insane, man.
Isn't it?
What the fuck? Boy, oh boy. It's very interesting to me that people can, are you just suing over your own incompetence? Is that what I'm looking at right now?
I believe Pennsylvania is one of those two-party states. Both sides have to agree to record a call or anything like that. As far as I can tell, he did not record the call.
Yeah.
So he's just reporting on it. But also, again, he didn't
do anything wrong.
He didn't just barge in there. He was invited. He was invited. Sometimes groups put out, P.Z. Myers did this 20-some years ago. I forgot
about P.Z. Myers.
Right? But he did this years ago where there was a creationist movie or something coming out. I can't remember the details. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But they sent out a thing. We're doing a call about this. And not only did he log on to it, he got access to the producer's side of the login information. Funny. So he just stayed on mute until he decided to chime in later, which was hilarious.
I bet.
But that's the thing. There's no reason to bring him into this necessarily because this is a different situation. But the point is, this guy did not hack his way into the phone call.
Oh, right.
Someone invited him. He listened. He talked about what he heard. It is hard to believe that constitutes wiretapping or an invasion of privacy. It sounds like old people not knowing how to preserve login information on stuff. So, good times.
Wow.
I did wait a couple days to reach out to Mark. I've talked to him indirectly in the past about other stories, and I was like, hey, I have questions for you about this thing, and I haven't heard back from him yet. I hope he's all right.
Wild.
Anyway, okay. Here's a very different story, but this one just made me laugh the whole time.
Oh, yay.
Okay, let me tell you about a guy named Josh Buice. His name is spelled B-U-I-C-E, but it rhymes with lice. And he's one of those right-wing...
Did you say it rhymes with Blice?
A lice.
Oh.
A lice.
You can't say it rhymes with itself.
He's one of those right-wing Theo bro trolls that just goes on social media, and anyone who's not as conservative as he is just the worst thing ever. This guy hates wokeness more than anything. Anyway, a couple years ago, he announced that the church he leads in Atlanta, Georgia, Praise Mill Baptist Church, they're quitting the Southern Baptist Convention. Oh. Because why?
Too woke.
Too woke.
Yes.
This Southern Baptist Convention had become too liberal. Somehow the anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-woman, historically racist organization was too accepting of social justice.
What did he cite particularly? Or did he?
I think...
Or did he just
he said they had passed a measure that said, this is a couple years ago in the wake of George Floyd, that we should consider critical race theory, not the right-wing version of it, but, race is infused into so much of what happens and we should be cognizant of it. And intersectionality. Yeah, we should consider that. And that passed at the SBC annual
I'm sorry,
meeting.
they passed a thing that they're going to consider something?
Yeah, it's
so brave.
It's seriously a symbolic measure. And he's like, well, if you're going to do that, we quit. So that's the sort of dude
3
we're
years
talking
later.
about. Yeah. And he actually went further than that. This is a guy in 2018. He organized the Statement on Social Justice. He's one of the organizers of it. And it warned that liberal ideas about race, specifically critical race theory and big scary quotation marks,
to talk about CRT in a
and
long time.
women's leadership had infiltrated evangelical churches. And
Infiltrated.
All right, so that's
We
this
are
guy.
sneaky women.
He's saying we need to put a stop to this shit right now.
Finally.
He's also, in addition to leading that church that is too conservative for the Southern Baptist Convention, he also found a conference called the G3 Conference. I forgot what the G's stand for, but it's grace and 2 other words no one cares about, probably God. But every 2 years they meet. It's a gathering of Reformed Baptists that are super right-wing. They push patriarchy, right-wing theology, stuff like that. So He's not a nobody. He's a pretty influential Twitter troll who runs a Baptist church that's definitely not Southern Baptist, and he heads up this conference that is pretty influential too. They already put out they're having their third G3 conference later this year. People have paid money to fly in. He has speakers and all that. Okay, so what's the scandal we're going to talk about now?
Oh, boy.
What just hit Josh Buice?
Okay. Is it something he did? Is it him or is it his church? It's him. Oh, he fucked a dude.
That would be amusing. That is not.
Okay,
not
that's one. 2, he has an online persona that's a woman, and he goes around like Reddit and stuff and like cosplays as a liberal woman.
That would be amusing.
I know. I'm very clever.
And you're very close.
Am I?
Yeah.
Oh, does he like troll himself or something like that?
Kind of.
No.
Okay, get this. So this week, the elders of Praise Mill Baptist Church, PRAY''S, the elders of that church.
No.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Absolutely not. That's a grammar crime.
The elders of that church and the board of G3 Ministries that runs that conference.
God.
So all the white dudes who run his areas, they issued a joint statement saying they have, I'll read the beginning of it.
Okay.
In recent weeks, the elders of Praise Mill Baptist Church uncovered irrefutable evidence that Dr. Buice has...
Doctor?
It's not real. We uncovered irrefutable evidence that Dr. Buice has, for the past 3 years, operated at least 4 anonymous social media accounts,
yes,
2 anonymous email addresses, and 2 Substack platforms.
Substacks?
These accounts were used to publicly and anonymously slander numerous Christian leaders, including faithful pastors, some of whom have spoken at G3 conferences, several elders in our church, and others.
He's trolling his bosses?
He's trolling his own allies and people because presumably
they were not
woke. They were too woke.
Oh my.
So at the patriarchy conference, he's like, you know who said some stupid shit? It was the dude on the panel with me, but I can't say that. So let me go into one of my personas online and trash him that way.
So brave. Wow. A real hero of our times.
So much. Now, first of all, this guy has 4 kids and 2 very high maintenance positions. How he can handle multiple sock puppet
I really thought you were going to say
accounts.
2 high maintenance dogs. I don't know why. I was just really excited about it.
Probably. How he can maintain this many sock puppet accounts and 2 Substacks just for the purpose of trolling.
This dude needs to find Stardew Valley. There's better outlets for his time.
Now, here's the thing.
Even if it's digital Stardew Valley grass.
The thing that annoyed so many people online is, well, which accounts is he?
Did he not admit which ones are him?
The church elders and the board, they would not admit which accounts we were talking about. But
why?
I don't know. It's like, okay, well, tell us what he said. Tell us who he was trashing and how he trashed them. Tell us which accounts he was using so that if we've ever, posted
if I run
that
across
stuff,
it and that guy starts trolling me, it's important for me to know who's talking.
Yeah, and 2 things about that. One is they did not reveal any of that information, nor did they reveal what irrefutable evidence they found that made them know it was him. They didn't share that.
It's so interesting when the church gets like super private about shit and we're like, oh my God, this is our congregation's secret private mission.
Something horrible has happened. Don't ask us any questions about it.
But then a 14-year-old girl gets knocked up and everybody, like, she has to stand in front of the congregation and tell them her business. Like, I'm sorry, who are we protecting here?
Right. So I don't know.
Ourselves.
I don't know what he said. I don't know how they found out he was behind the accounts. But they apparently had suspicions for at least 2 years because the statement says they confronted him about this multiple times, but he denied any knowledge of these accounts.
No.
And he continued to deny everything for hours after they presented him with proof of how they knew he was behind these accounts.
I would give anything to be in that room.
Right? Now, people online have speculated they know what the sock puppet accounts were, And one of the reasons it's like, well, maybe they have a point is because everything's been deleted. Like if you go to those Twitter accounts now, it's just like this account has been protected. You can't see anything. So it's like,
we do know the accounts that
people are speculating.
Oh,
They're
I
like,
see.
this is a random account that just trashes Christian pastors that appear at those conferences. So it may be him. And all of a sudden, this week, oh, look, those accounts are all gone now.
I love this story more than I've ever loved anything.
So eventually, after they confronted him with this and he denied it, and then he denied it again, he confessed, kind of. The statement said, only after further evidence was presented and much pleading with him to walk in the light did Josh finally confess to his actions. They gave up on the Dr. Buice thing right away. But it doesn't say, like, when did he confess after he was confronted with the evidence, or like 3 days after where he's like, shit, they figured it out. I don't have a way to hide from this.
Oh my God, it's so funny. This is such a let them fight situation.
Oh, it really is.
Oh, I love it. I'd buy tickets.
So here's the thing. He's currently, according to the church elders, he's presently disqualified from serving as an elder.
Oh, no.
Presently
oh, my God.
disqualified, which implies, we could bring him back in 2 weeks after y'all forget this all happened.
I mean, the punishment suits the crime, I guess. This is a very serious action they're taking.
Here's the thing. He's their moneymaker.
Oh, yeah?
They can't just get rid of him because, like, no one cares about the elders. They care about the dude at the front of the pulpit, right? Like, they care about...
And is he the main
He's
gentleman?
the main character at this church and at this conference. So the elders are like, he's presently disqualified, but only keyword presently. As for the G3 conference, which again, every 2 years, and they were about to have it later this year, they have said, we're canceling the conference for this year. But as far as I know, the organization's going to continue. The conference could make a return in 2 years. The ministry even said his content will remain, everything he wrote for the conference and like they published on blogs. God. They said his content will remain accessible via the G3 website and G3 Plus, whatever the hell that is. I think they have
that definitely means they're charging you $5 a month.
I think they have since taken it down. But anyway, they still thought he was worth listening to, even when he's posing.
God, these people have no moral backbone. It's insane.
It seems like they're mostly angry that he used anonymous accounts to do privately what he was doing publicly, which is being a professional asshole. Except when he was using those accounts to go after some of their allies instead of shared enemies, like, I don't know, women and people of color.
Yeah.
And white guys who had any sympathy for those people.
I love this.
Right? So
God.
None of these temporary punishments would matter to any of us. Like, these are not losses to society. Both of them leave the door open for this guy to return to his positions after whatever his 2 week sabbatical when he's like, don't worry, guys, I really found Jesus.
Yeah, I did some good praying over there.
Yeah, really what's going to happen is everyone's going to forget this story in a few weeks, and then he'll come back, and no one will remember. Because, again, his whole persona is, I'm a professional bully with a mindset of a teenager who cosplays as a religious leader, bring me back. But, again, if you don't know what he did on those alt accounts, I don't know how seriously I should be taking anything he did.
Sure.
Do you remember Mark Driscoll?
Oh, yeah.
Mark Driscoll admitted to using the online pseudonym William Wallace II.
It's all so embarrassing.
Yeah.
No, William Wallace II, no.
Yeah, he wrote a book where he's like, I've done some dumb things. Like, man, a while back, I used this online pseudonym, William Wallace II, the Braveheart. Right.
Yeah, we know Will.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
But he said in his book, I did it to make some anonymous comments online. And people are like, you haven't deleted your comments, right? And then they found what he said on the comment thread.
And it was cool and chill, and everybody's happy.
And he complained about living in a, quote, pussified nation. And why was it pussified? Because he was living among, quote, male lesbians.
Oh my God, they wish they were male lesbians. They would actually have skills they could bring to the table.
So this is not new. Like, Christian assholes do this sort of thing all the time. This is a story like 20 years ago.
I also never want to hear you say pussified again.
I don't want to hear me say it again. There was another hate preacher recently, Dale Partridge, who, like, there was a Twitter conversation where, let me quote to you
Okay.
from the image that made the rounds. Here's Dale Partridge actually tweeting as himself. Women are designed to be led. If a woman refuses male leadership, she will either end up alone or with a beta male. Beta males always leave women feeling insecure, which makes her prone to leaving him for an alpha male and leaves him prone to leaving her for a submissive woman. To which someone else responds, I try very hard to lead my wife sacrificially, but I suspect that somehow I would still be labeled as a beta male, so that's fun. To which Dale Partridge responds, my husband serves by leading. He sacrifices by leading. He loves by leading. Think about that for a second.
What the fuck?
I know. Trying to get into the weeds of this guy.
And which is done under a pseudonym.
Dale, as himself,
Okay.
responded to a commenter by saying, my husband serves by leading. He thought he was imitating his wife. He thought he was under a different name. But he tweeted that. Everyone got the screenshots. And then that tweet is gone, and he's never addressed it ever.
Can we just change the name of this podcast to Baby Boomers Don't Get It?
Do you remember the white Republican lawmaker who did not switch accounts and then said, I'm a black gay guy for whom Obama did nothing?
Oh, God. It was
Do you remember that?
so good.
Like, conservative extremists have a habit of creating alternative accounts, usually to boost their main accounts or go after critics or anyone who is an extreme as they are, because they know if their arguments were any good, other people would boost it for them, but no one is doing that. So they need others to come to their defense. And if no one's doing it, they'll create alts, which will do it for them.
Listen, if your argument is worth lying about, it's a shitty argument.
Right.
Like,
So for-
why?
So for guys like Buice, lying, if you want to call having alt anonymous accounts lying, it's always
That's in
okay.
the Ten Commandments, too. You're not supposed to do that.
Right. Jesus talked about tweets very clearly. Lying is always okay if you're doing it to promote religious extremism. The irony is this guy once banned someone from attending one of his G3 conferences because they use social media to criticize some of the speakers.
Oh, boy, these people.
Also,
oh, my God.
In 2023, this is something Josh Buice tweeted. Effeminate is hiding behind a mask and refusing to be a man. Just saying.
Hiding behind like mask, M-A-S-C, like a masculine persona?
Nope, just hiding behind a mask. How
Wait,
dare
say
you
it again.
hide?
Effeminate? Being effeminate?
Grammar is wrong here, but effeminate is hiding behind a mask and refusing to be a man. So this guy has a big
don't know
problem
what
with
that
people who are
means.
hiding,
Oh, yeah.
hiding themselves. But anyway,
boy.
the statement from the elders on the board, the ministry board, made it sound like, hey, we're the good guys and we caught this bad guy, which is the wrong way to look at it. Because for years, these two organizations promoted this guy's utterly deranged views, and they plan, from what I can tell, to give him the reins right back as soon as this all dies down. Like, the statement doesn't tell us if these people are more bothered by the anonymity or this guy's denials, even after they caught him,
lying.
or the substance of anything he said under those accounts.
I mean,
Right?
I wonder if this is something I've pointed out a couple times of like, if a sin is a sin is a sin, then like, well, he did these terrible things, but
Yeah,
they all
but
fall under the blanket of sin.
But
And
which
so,
thing is the sin they're mad about? Is it that he had anonymous accounts?
but that's what I'm saying is like, they're just like, well, he sinned. And
Yeah.
so it's a blanket accusation and therefore can be a blanket excuse for his behavior.
Yeah, and
that's
without,
my guess.
without giving the public a chance to know what he said when he
they don't
thought
care
no
about
one
the
would catch
public.
him, they're just making things worse.
Why
Like
do
if
they give a shit about the public? They
Oh.
are so insular and so up each other's asses. They do not know what the public thinks or wants.
right. So
Wow.
there you go. Good times.
Wow, that was what an outstanding roller coaster ride that was for me.
Right.
Oh my
All
God.
right. I got another one for you along the same lines.
All right, hit me.
It's been a busy week.
Yeah.
Okay. We've maybe talked about this guy a little bit. His name is Michael Brown. He is an apologist and evangelist for decades now. He promotes Messianic Judaism. He was born Jewish, so culturally Jewish, but he found Jesus. He's one of those guys.
Messianic Judaism?
Long story.
Okay.
And then he
Is that-
spouts anti-gay talking points. He has a YouTube show called The Line of Fire. He also has the Fire School of Ministry.
Boy, these dramatic young men.
Dude. This guy's old. He's also linked.
men.
He's linked homosexuality with pedophilia. He said, I think when Pete Buttigieg was running for president years ago, he said a potential president in a same-sex marriage would, quote, contribute to the further degeneration and moral confusion of our society. So that's who this guy is. Okay. So he's a conservative comment thread come to life, but when you watch his videos, he just has this, hey, you guys, like, I just don't get why we're doing this. Very aw shucks demeanor.
Yeah.
He doesn't come across as like, I hate you, I want to fight you. True story. When I used to have contributors to my website in the past several years, there was someone who was writing about church-state separation who was religious. Well, she turned out to become even more religious after we kind of parted ways. And she apparently sent him a letter saying, hey, I used to write these things about you to criticize you, but I find that you are now correct. So we brought her on for an interview.
Oh, fun. Did you get name checked? Did she say that?
A little bit. But the point is, like, this guy has this demeanor like, I'm reasonable. I listen to all sides. I just don't like the moral degeneracy that happens with
he's not the
gays.
Alex Jones screaming about whatever.
He's a reasonable bigot.
Just make it make sense.
Right. So last December, a lot of this came crashing down because apparently a former secretary that worked at his ministry, the school he runs, she accused him of crossing physical and ethical boundaries.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so she said her nickname under the when she went public, her name was Erin. That's a fake name, but okay. Erin said she left that school because she felt trapped when Michael Brown, a man she called dad, affectionately, he would frequently cross physical boundaries. He would hold her hand, kiss her on the lips, and slap her bottom, she said.
Excuse me?
Yep. Quote, he was supposed to be a spiritual father. He was supposed to look after me. So that's what she said, that he did these things to her. Now, at the time, what Michael Brown told his board members about these allegations before they were published, but when the reporter was like, hey, I just heard all these things, what he said to his board is that there was an emotional connection with somebody. He said he had made mistakes in the past, but they were behind him now.
Oh,
Basically, I have repented. He also issued a public statement before the story went out that was like, okay, I had a lack of judgment, but also some of the accusations are false and they mischaracterize what happened. Okay, whatever. This stuff is gross and unethical. Not necessarily criminal, I don't think, but it's like, oh, what the hell, dude?
And
She
she's
trusted
a student,
you.
so she's underage?
She was like 21
Gotcha.
at the time. So here's what the board did, though. Obviously, even if nothing criminal happened, this is disturbing. So they said, don't worry, we're going to hire an outside law firm after the story came out. We're going to hire an outside law firm to investigate the matter. And also to all of our supporters, we're going to make a summary of the findings public.
Cool.
They actually hired someone who routinely defends other accused predators, which was not a good look. So they eventually hired a different firm. It was called Firefly. This is what they do. They investigate this stuff. As far as I could tell, that organization's fine. But they hired a second group. They're like, all right, you do the investigation. In the meantime, they asked Michael Brown, don't make any public statements, and he deactivated his Twitter account. Actually, he didn't deactivate it. He just said, this is from December 7th of last year. Because I can't make any comments on the current situation I'm dealing with until the investigation is completed, I'm going to deactivate my account until then. May the Lord be glorified. Feel free to screenshot this post while it's up. I don't know why. That's a weird thing to say.
Why would he say that?
I don't know. You don't have to deactivate your post or your account, though. You can just ignore it.
And just stop posting?
But again,
that's not deactivation.
If you don't deactivate it, people can tag you and respond to you and be mad at you, but deactivating it makes it much harder for people to call you out.
Right.
So he deactivated his account.
Oh.
But here's the thing. Then the situation, after he did that, and after the ministry said, we're going to investigate this, things just got worse. Erin, that pseudonym, she revealed her actual name. She said, he said in his statement he had apologized. No, he didn't.
Oh.
And also he's trying to cover his own ass. By the way, this we also learned this. He said, I also had an emotional relationship with someone else. Turned out that was his best friend's wife.
Cute.
That was also disturbing. He also released a video in which he said he had tried to confess all of this to his church community earlier.
Tried?
But everyone around him told him not to do that.
Wow, he's the real victim here.
Yes. Okay, so here's where we're at now. A couple of weeks ago, after 6 months, Firefly released its report.
Okay.
And it wasn't a summary, as far as I could tell. It was the full 47-page report, minus transcripts of every interview they did with it, right? So here's what they did. In short, Firefly found that, quote, his actions toward the two females was inappropriate to the best friend's wife, to Aaron, quote unquote. His actions toward the two females were inappropriate and unacceptable for his leadership position within the ministry. The report also said that his conduct, quote, violated the ethical standards expected of someone in his role and undermined the trust and integrity essential to leadership within the church community.
That sounds
And
right.
here's how they concluded it. Based on gathered information and consistent accounts from multiple witnesses, it is evident that Brown engaged in an inappropriate relationship with his best friend's wife, as well as an inappropriate relationship involving sexually abusive misconduct with the woman known as Erin. ... Although the lack of direct proof of intent leaves room for speculation, the numerous interviews and in many cases corroborating documentation point to a deliberate involvement of sexual misconduct within his ministry, his school, which could also be viewed as sexual harassment and or a hostile work environment, especially with Brown holding a position of power within the school generally, and more specifically with the woman known as Erin. So, I mean, that sounds pretty damning.
Yeah.
And also, that sounds like what you would hope.
And not obfuscating language, very straightforward.
Yeah, and they're saying, as far as my reading of it, okay, he's not going to jail. He didn't do anything criminal. But based on your rules and
He's
based
probably
on
not fit for his job.
based on, I mean, if a student at his school did what he did, that student would be expelled. It reminded me of the Jerry Falwell Jr. situation, right? Liberty University will kick you out if you're side hugging someone for too many seconds. Meanwhile, he and his wife were doing who knows what. Again, I don't care about their private life.
Right.
I do care about the hypocrisy.
Right.
So here's the thing. The board of Brown's ministry, the board of that school, they took that report to heart and they told him, you have to resign or we're going to fire you.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. What did the board of his ministry do when they were given this report from Firefly?
They did nothing.
They rejected the report's findings and basically blamed the victims. So, for example, they said the definition of sexual abuse used by the investigators was way too broad, because apparently it's only sexual abuse if it comes from the sexual abuse region of France. Otherwise, it's just misconduct, right? So they said the Elder Accountability Team argued in their review that the Firefly investigators overreached in their investigation. Basically, what the investigators did is they said sexual abuse isn't just physical abuse. It encompasses more stuff than that. So when we say he committed sexual abuse, we're not just saying he,
touch somebody's butt.
They're not saying he physically assaulted her. It also includes things you say to somebody. It also includes, yes, if you're touching someone inappropriately, even if it's not criminal, that all counts. And they're like, you guys, that's way too broad of a definition. So when you say he sexually abused somebody, calm down. Here's what they said.
And they wonder why women don't come forward.
They expanded their definition of sexual abuse beyond the historically narrow understanding of those terms to classify his conduct with the two women as sexually abusive misconduct. Mind you, they said this all happened in 2001, 2002, happened a long time ago, but whatever. They also said, the elders wrote, we believe a more accurate and historically consistent characterization of what Dr. Brown did is moral indiscretions in the case of the wife and leadership misconduct in the case with Erin. That's what he did. It wasn't
and
sexual
that doesn't
abuse,
rise to the consequence of anything?
Yeah. They also said the report found that Brown had groomed his former secretary, but they said that's unfair because it's just a, quote, grievous lack of judgment, and a violation of the conduct established by his standards for Fire School of Ministry.
And that's all. Like, what? They're just repeating the thing he said, but in a tone that means it's nothing.
The investigation said, yeah, he groomed this young woman. Yeah. And the
and
elders
like, no,
are like, you guys,
no,
he made a mistake.
Groomed her.
Calm down.
Like, you can't say the same thing in a different voice and pretend it's different.
They also said Firefly's report did not include statements from Brown or Brown's wife, but it did include unchallenged statements from people in the know who spoke out against his actions. Like, you included testimonies in your report from people who are like, yeah, this happened to Erin when she was at the school. She told me about it when it happened. They're like, yeah, but you didn't include Dr. Brown's statement saying
no.
No. Uh-huh. They also said, the Bible has a set of rules for how we deal with sinners, and those rules were not followed. Because, for example, in Matthew 18, it says, if you are accusing someone of something, you have to go to that person yourself and say, hey, you did this thing to me. And only if they don't accept it or apologize do you go to others. And hey, this Erin, she went to like the investigators. She did not talk to Dr. Brown privately about all the ways he was touching her.
Wait.
That's their argument.
That's what they meant?
Yeah.
That she did not accuse him to his face?
Basically. Instead, they wrote, the allegations, quote, were re-litigated with accusations, judgment, and sentencing by a jury on social media. Because she went to a reporter to talk about this stuff.
Sorry, I thought you meant you, Firefly, didn't come up to Dr. Brown or whatever his fucking name is.
Oh, no, they talked to him. They talked to him about all this. They did their job.
So their basis of dropping this... So this is like they're trying to technically get their way. It's like, you didn't read him his Miranda rights.
Yeah.
And so the murder
saying,
doesn't
Erin,
count.
if you had a problem with anything he was doing to you, then you should have confronted him one-on-one when you were his subordinate and he was touching you inappropriately. But you did not. And therefore, Firefly, how come you're not considering that? Do you not care about the Bible?
Didn't the church hire Firefly?
They did. Outside group.
And
independent
then
group.
As a way to be like, listen, we're taking these seriously. And then they got the report back and did not take it seriously.
That's correct.
So they just wasted hundreds of people's time.
Oh, yeah. So, and this is how they concluded. It appears clear to the elder accountability team, this is Michael Brown's people, that throughout this process, dating back 23 years, Dr. Brown has been repeatedly questioned about these two situations and has answered his interrogators consistently with honesty and remorse. The Elders Accountability Team believes it is time to finally put this matter to rest and allow these transgressions, are you ready for this? Yeah. And allow these transgressions to remain where they should be.
In the past.
Nailed to the cross of Christ, cast as far as the east is from the west, and no longer used against him.
What the fuck did you just say to me?
No one knows. Even though
this guy,
Erin,
and they're equating this guy harassing young women to being crucified?
They don't care about the harassing. They care like, oh, she only brought this up now, like 20 years later. Are you kidding me? I'm sorry. He made a little mistakey. How dare you use this against him?
But I get why aren't leaders held to higher standards?
And not just that, but his own peers who are out there saying, if you believe what we believe, you'll be a morally righteous person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, using their logic, there's nothing that cannot be forgiven with the passage of time, even if the scars of what he did are felt by his victims long afterwards.
I mean, these people are just moving through the world, making everybody uncomfortable around them, putting themselves above anybody else's feelings or physical well-being or emotional selves, just so they cannot question anything they do or think or say. That's so important for them to never be self-reflective and never care what damage they did. They just have to keep moving forward because there's other ladies out there who are too fucking comfortable.
So Erin, her actual name, which she has revealed in a bunch of interviews now, her name is Sarah Monk. when Julie Roys, the reporter, contacted her about this, here's what she said. It was a gut punch to read the elders' response.
Could you imagine?
Quote, what hurt the most was seeing how they decided that they didn't like the wording of the sexually abusive misconduct when it came to me. That's why victims don't come forward, because those are supposed to be helping and protecting and counseling. They just don't care. So the bottom line, here's where we're at. It's not that Brown did anything criminal. It's that his actions violated the very rules his school promoted, that he says is essential for moral life, that he wrote. Like, all of that stuff. It's deeply ironic that this guy believes gay people in monogamous relationships contribute to moral confusion, but a straight guy manipulating a woman through a power imbalance can run a ministry as long as he promises to do better in the future. And then... as
long as there's no consequences for his actions.
None whatsoever. So his wife, Nancy, remember the elders said you didn't include her statements either.
Oh,
She's
yeah,
been
what did
around
Nancy
this whole
have
time.
to say?
She released a statement on the ministry's website. Basically, it was so long and deranged as I'm reading it. And I'll tell you some of it in a second. But I'm like, oh, that's why they didn't include it in the report. She's a crazy person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Here's what she said. And this is just a part of a very long rant that she posted.
I'm sure broken up into readable paragraphs.
I must state here categorically, I'm thinking Ginny Thomas, Thomas's wife the whole time. I must state here categorically and in no uncertain terms, Mike is not and has never been a sexual predator, groomer, or deviant, nor has he ever exploited a single human being for his own personal gain or ego, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. And although Mike's interaction with Erin was certainly foolish and irresponsible, his intentions were completely innocent, with absolutely no malintent. He viewed her as a father to a daughter. Unfortunately, he has been made to look like a diabolical deviant and predator, and nothing could be further from the truth. Which, by the way, when a conservative Christian says he treated her like a daughter, that sounds innocent until you realize conservative Christianity is full of stories about children being abused in
physically,
families.
sexually, all the things.
So then the elder accountability team said, all right, now that we've responded to that whole report
situation,
we now believe Dr. Brown can return to public ministry as long as he follows our rules in the future. Yeah, here's what they said. Since Dr. Brown's sins were committed long ago without any repeated behavioral patterns of like conduct, the elder accountability team recommends that Dr. Brown be released to public ministry.
So brave.
So it's very convenient when your buddies clear you, the head of the ministry, to continue working and making money for the ministry. And then this week, maybe last week, after 6 months out of the spotlight himself, he posted a video announcing his return. And it was the funniest damn video I've ever seen, because he's just sitting there with his aw shucks attitude again. He told the audience he's encountered God in new ways.
Oh, what kind?
And he's not interested in relitigating anything. Here's what he said. I know that as I'm speaking to you, some of you are thrilled to see me back online, and others, you'd rather never see my face again. So I want to make it clear. I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to argue. I am not here to prove a point. I'm not here to chase down this rumor or refute this allegation. I'm not going to be putting up screenshots and video clips and getting into some kind of internet war. Yeah, of course.
That's it?
Well, I mean, he goes on for a while. But it's like, yeah, of course you're not, because it all makes you look really bad. Of course you were like, I'm not going to fight all these people online. Yeah, because you're the only bad guy in the situation. How did he summarize the report from Firefly and the elders' response to it?
Tell me.
This was the process I was asked to submit to, and I said, yes, let's do it. The investigation was turned over to an independent team of elders. They looked at the results of the investigation, they evaluated me, and then they rendered their verdict. And on April 28th, they released me to resume ministry effective immediately. And that's why I'm here now speaking to you today.
I'm sorry, I have to take issue with just one thing that he said. An independent council of elders?
Yeah.
Does that mean that out of your
ministries-
10 best friends, they picked 6 of them randomly? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, the independence thing happened when the report came in. That was the independent part. And now you had to deal with it or not.
And he just acts like, yeah, they turned over, it's the Mueller report. They turned over the investigation. It was considered, and now I'm free. Why would you have any questions about that?
I hate these people.
Right? Like, he doesn't mention what the investigation said.
No, of course. Because it doesn't matter. It's absolved him.
He acts like the elders' rejection of the investigation is the final verdict on the matter, not the investigation itself. Like, if the investigation said Brown was unfairly accused of everything, you know he would have mentioned that.
Oh, yeah.
Instead, he's just like, yeah, they turned in a report, my elders looked at it, and now I'm here. So
that's truly exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Like, he yada, 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 his way through harassment.
Yeah. So he's going to keep making videos like none of this ever happened. His supporters won't give a damn because they never did.
No.
Hypocrisy is never an issue for conservatives. That's why they'll vote for sexual predators while demonizing trans people and refugees as threats to women.
Yep.
Now, I will say, not everyone in Brown's orbit agrees with this. One of his longtime ministry partners, a guy named Ron Cantor, he released his own statement condemning what the elders did. It's worth reading because of how detailed it is. But he wrote about how Firefly's contract, it defined sexually abusive conduct in advance.
Did it?
So the elders' conclusion that they expanded the definition after the fact, that's baseless. He said the elders promised that there would be a trauma-informed counselor who would help keep Brown accountable during the whole process. They never assigned one of those.
No.
It goes on like that for a while. And he writes at the end, sadly, this report seems to have one goal, the elders report, the response. It has one goal, get Mike back in the ministry. 5 people, none of whom are trained psychologists with experience in clergy sexual abuse, are telling 5 million people that this is over. I hope he is broken and ready to do the long and hard work of making amends.
No.
I told a mutual friend that if I believed he was truly broken, meaning repentant, I would drop everything and fly to Charlotte to help him. Repentance is a word, but one must show fruit to prove the repentance. I hope we see that soon. So he's like, if I thought he meant it, he's not sorry. Another former minister, by the way, I think I just read a headline today that said Michael Brown is now trying to get this, going to court to get this guy to shut up. I don't know. I don't know the details of that.
Wait, who is this guy?
Just a former guy who worked for the ministry but left a while ago. Don't know the reason.
Interesting.
Another former ministry leader named Robert Gladstone said he was disappointed by what the elders did, and he pointed out Firefly said these incidents were isolated to a few years a while back, like the early 2000s, but that's not accurate. Here's what Robert Gladstone wrote. While the accountability team's recommendations failed to account for the changing stories that Brown has told, it did emphasize the supposed isolated nature of the abuses. But as I've stated before, they were not isolated to the past. They continue with the victim's pain and the alleged ongoing lies. In other words, in my opinion, the accountability team rewrote history regarding the original problem, calling it something they prefer and then isolating it to the past. And then they disregarded a very credible account of cover-up.
I mean, listen, this is an entire culture who calls it the war of northern aggression, so I don't think any of us should be surprised that they like to dance around terms.
He also said, this is Gladstone, he said the injustice continues because the report, quote, insults the survivors, further injures them, ignores many who testify of Michael Brown's cover-up and lies, completely misjudges the need for public exposure, and then commends a man back into ministry while giving those he mistreated further pain.
I love this man. Is he single? Does he want to talk?
Yes, and he's very old, and he is a hardcore Christian. So
these fucking people do not care about anybody besides themselves. And it is, I think maybe a lot of my disdain for religion, organized religion and capitalism sort of all comes from the same spot of the people at the top are trying to make themselves happier, better, more well, and doesn't give a shit about anybody and the consequences that come from that because their goal is to stay in power and full stop. And I just have absolutely no patience for people who are willing to sacrifice anything for their stupid, pointless goals. Like, what, you want You want to be the fanciest pastor in North Carolina? Who fucking cares? Just like keep your head down. If you believe in what you're doing, do it well and do it like it matters, or find something else to do. It's such fucking nonsense that these men think that they are the center of the universe, and anybody who says otherwise is just somebody trying to get them? Like, really, this is what we're going to spend our time doing is target. It's just disgusting and appalling. And anytime one of these people pretends that they have the moral upper hand, it makes me sick because the morals they care about, they made up and don't apply to anybody else. Right? Like, oh, you can't be sad about oppression because we decided oppression isn't a thing. Like, what are you talking about? I don't. It's fucking disgusting, is what it is. These men who will do anything for power. It's appalling and disgusting, and is going to lead to the downfall of this country.
Too late. Do you want to go to a regular church-state separation story?
I kind of have the adrenaline rushes, so I don't know.
I got to calm you down for a bit. There you go. So you'll like it.
Shaking.
It's a story about dogs.
I love dogs.
I know.
Where's my dog?
So here's the story.
Daddy.
This has been brewing for a while, but all the pieces only recently came together. Like last year in Kentucky, the Attorney General of the state, his name is Russell Coleman, he posted on social media about how his office's dog, like they have a canine in the office, quote,
a canine in the office,
yes,
Hammett?
I don't know. Completed a training session at Ark Encounter with her colleagues from the Kentucky State Police and the Boone County Sheriff's Office. And there is a picture of like these dogs outside the Ark.
Oh, so it was like a sensory training thing.
I don't know what the training consisted of, but like you can see they were training these dogs how to do their job in the field.
Yeah.
Whatever it is they do. And they were doing this at Ark Encounter. But it's always possible that Ark Encounter, even though it's a creationist ministry, maybe they were the host for like a local secular event and they rented out the space. That's possible. Like that would still be problematic, like a church hosting a graduation ceremony. But if it's the only space in town to hold that many people,
sure,
maybe there's a justification for it. Anyway, the Attorney General's post did not suggest Christianity was a part of the event, only that it occurred at Ark Encounter.
Okay.
So, raises an eyebrow, but not much more than that.
Yeah, I imagine there's not a ton of like big places that people can meet up in that part of the country.
Especially with all those animals coming in for a training session. Okay.
Give them benefit of the doubt so far.
So this past February, Answers in Genesis, which runs Ark Encounter, they kind of gave it away because they said, hey guys, we're hosting the 3rd annual K9 conference. Here's what they said. A total of 47 K9 teams from across the United States, along with 2 international teams, participated in this 4-day event. Throughout the conference, the K9s and their handlers engaged in over 30 scenarios set in various locations around the Ark Encounter property. Okay, so it was a big training session at Ark Encounter.
Yeah.
All right.
And so far, this is like with training for a dog. Like you've probably seen pictures of like dogs sitting in theater seats watching Billy Elliot or whatever because they just have to learn to be desensitized.
And these may be police dogs, so they have specific things they're trying to do.
Yeah, police dogs, support dogs.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
So again, was this a secular event at a Christian location or an explicitly Christian event? So Ken Ham, who is not very smart, then just blurted it out. Not only will this kind of training help save lives, but the officers who participated were able to hear the gospel and the message of the truth of God's word.
Bing
Praise
bong.
the Lord.
Found it.
So it was a dog training event full of religious preaching. And again,
which is fine.
Ark Encounter can host an event like that, but it's weird for the government agencies to take part in it.
Yeah.
And lucky for us, Ken Ham included pictures that show the Kentucky State Police taking part in that event. Here's another thing. His pictures that he posted also showed that this conference that he had in February, apparently for the 3rd time, had the presence of a ministry called TACTICA, Tactica, like tactic, but Tactica Ministries. They're in charge.
Terrible.
All caps, by the way. They're in charge of the training. And what does Tactica stand for? Teaching Authorities Christian Truth in Central America. Their whole thing is going to Central America and converting the brown people.
Oh, yeah, that's definitely the problem Central America's having. Not enough white people are going down there and fucking shit up.
So apparently there's a guy named Ben Lowe who is a local county undersheriff, like just under the sheriff. He spoke about the ministry.
Thank you for clarifying what under.
He spoke about the ministry at a church earlier this year. And here's what he said. This was he's showing a picture of the conference. This was a canine conference that Tactica Ministries hold there at Ark Encounter every year. So they have canine officers that come from around the country to train with their dogs at Ark Encounter. Ark Encounter hosts them, ... These officers can earn things by memorizing verses.
Oh,
they're preaching the gospel to them. And so
crutch.
through doing some of these specialized trainings, they've come up with ways that they can continue to grow the ministry here in the United States. So there's a guy named Dan Phelps who is an Ark Encounter watchdog who's been, for years, he's spent watching how are they taking money from the local government and the community and all that.
Is there Fred Phelps relation?
No relation. Every month, Dan Phelps still sends out a group of reporters, like how much money did they make over the past month? Because we know that based on public records. So Dan's awesome.
Yeah.
Dan filed a public records request to learn more about this training conference now that we knew about it, and he got a sense of the costs involved. Kentucky taxpayers are paying approximately $225 to train one officer. That does not include money spent by other law enforcement agencies. According to the itinerary he got about this conference, a good deal of the first day of training involved signing in and roaming the Ark. Just visiting. Have fun. Go look around at the creationist shit. Then there were lunchtime testimonials that include religious instruction, and evangelism of law enforcement officers was a substantial portion of the canine training.
Gang, you have to be subtle sometimes.
Dude. Then there was a welcome package that the email answers in Genesis sent to everyone who was participating in this thing. And they very much made it clear, we're trying to convert you. Here's the end of that welcome message. Our most sincere prayer is that if you don't know Jesus Christ as your Savior, come and talk to us. We'd love to share with you the good news of the gospel, which blah, 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 who cares? So the Freedom from Religion Foundation sent a letter to the commissioner of the Kentucky State Police saying, you can't do this.
Yeah.
That's it. It's unconstitutional and unwarranted to send public employees to participate in religious exercises.
So inappropriate.
Stop.
Yeah, but please.
Right? The bottom line is taxpayer-funded cops should not be attending religious worship sessions under the guise of dog training.
Right.
And there's no lack of secular canine training options. Right? That makes this even more egregious. Tax dollars should not be spent promoting Christianity or answers in Genesis. It's not complicated. So recently, the Louisville Courier-Journal, they published an article detailing all of the stuff I just told you. And the reporter pointed out that Ark Encounter and Tactica Ministries are not the only ones bragging about how Jesus was shoved into these trainings. Quote, Northern Kentucky's Fort Thomas Police Department, which sent an officer and a German short-haired pointer named Bullet to the Ark Encounter's third annual canine conference in February, summed up the event as 4 days of training, speeches, and gospel sermons.
Oh.
This is how the police
1, 2, 3.
department is doing it. And the most pathetic response came from the Kentucky State Police, who spokesperson said, the Kentucky State Police trooper who attended advised that evangelical speeches and scripture memorization were conducted during breaks and not during canine training, and were entirely voluntary. Which is
wildly
ridiculous. You don't go to Ark
Wildly
Encounter and receive a religious message on bathroom breaks.
Truly, and the thing that's too bad. I mean, really, there's so
It's
much.
saying I went to a mega church, but only for the secular parts.
Right, I just like the music.
Right, the religious message is baked into the whole thing.
Yeah, there is an argument, I bet, that somebody could make of well, this is a really unique place and there's a lot of different kind of scenarios there, right? You have a small dark area, you have a big wide open thing. I could see, bringing your dog to fucking Great America to get them used to whatever. Yep. But boy, they didn't even, if they had even made the tiniest effort of being we're really going to try to separate church and state on this, but we just think this is a good opportunity, I would be a little empathetic, but this is not that.
A Boone County Sheriff's Office spokesperson also said the religious aspects were only, quote, a very small part of the conference.
Very small part, you say.
And that officers were not required to participate in them. Which is horrible. Ark Encounter does not minimize religious proselytizing. It is what they do.
Yeah,
promoting creationism isn't some teeny tiny bit of seeing their stupid boat. Without it, you got nothing. And if this was optional, how many officers chose not to participate? You can always say preaching is optional and then make it virtually impossible to escape whether it's peer pressure or whatever you want to call it. In fact,
so funny.
The article in the Courier Journal even brought up how Tactica insists on proselytizing at trainings, even with government officials. They said in a video posted by a Michigan church where the group's founder was speaking, he said Tactica enters into agreements with governments in countries like Costa Rica and Ecuador where they offer to train police, but only if they're allowed to openly proselytize during the training. The heart of what we do, he said, is disciple making and making those disciple makers. Like either the cops are lying or the religious leaders are lying or they're all lying.
Tell me how this isn't colonialism. Could you explain to me how this isn't colonialism?
Well, they're brown, so.
These fucking people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Now,
it's frustrating to see people doing things that could be good and just choosing to do the worst possible thing with it. It's disappointing. That's what it is.
I don't know if there's anything that could be done to stop this because the state police don't seem to give a damn.
No.
And if anyone files a lawsuit, that feels like a long shot in this case. But like no one seems to disagree about the core issue here. Taxpayers in Kentucky are funding faith-based training seminars for police dogs. They are run by people, these seminars, they're run by people whose goal isn't to train animals, but to convert the humans and spread the gospel message. Like no non-Christian group would ever get that same opportunity. So the message from Kentucky law enforcement is, okay, Christianity is above the law, which is a disturbing message for
I have
them
bad
to
news.
send.
Daddy just came downstairs and she just told me that she converted to Christianity. So we're going to have a conversation
lost another
about
one.
that. I told you she's not a very smart dog.
There you go. All right, I got one more story for you. This one is disturbing, but this is a scary big deal that NBC News published articles about.
Uh-oh.
So here's the story here. There used to be a missionary group, a Christian missionary group called New Tribes Mission. And their whole thing was we want to reach and convert the uncontacted, isolated tribes around the world.
Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. You're going to get
John Allen
killed.
Chow was the guy you're thinking of who went to the, Andaman Islands.
Yeah, off India?
Off India's coast, which is a protected place because they're like, we don't know those people, but we are protecting them. Humans cannot go to that island. He's like, but they got to be converted. And he went there with the Bible and they murdered him.
Yeah.
Because he also has diseases and who knows what he's going to inflict the community with. Anyway.
And also, it's colonialism.
So New Tribes Mission is a whole ministry. Has nothing to do with that guy, by the way.
Appalling.
But yeah, in countries like in Brazil and the Philippines, these missionaries set up boarding schools for their own kids.
No, do not say boarding schools.
That's what they call them. While the parents go on these trips. So they like, all right, kids, we're in the Philippines. We're going to leave you here. Mommy and daddy are going to go out to reach these uncontacted tribes.
And definitely not get skewered like a shish kebab, for sure.
And here's the thing, and this is why this became a story. The staffers at some of those schools where these missionaries left their kids, they are called, I shit you not, the dorm dads. They were later accused of heinous crimes by the children. In one case, just to give you specifics, in one case, a man hid a seashell in his bathing suit and told the little girls to find it. That same dude would tuck another girl into bed in the same room as his own daughter and then sexually assault her.
No.
Another case, a woman said her own father molested her and her roommates for years. She told her dorm mother about it when she was 15 years later. New Tribes Mission, what did they do? Nothing. They sent a few leaders to the school to investigate matters, but they told her to keep quiet because if she didn't, quote, my dad would be thrown in a Filipino jail. And then her whole family was sent back to Missouri for therapy with the church-approved counselor. But don't worry, 2 weeks later, they were all declared healed. And they went right back to it. So,
and these dorm dads, these are like Americans?
They may be outside staffers. They might be Americans. They might be locals. But like these are the people in charge of the kids when the parents are out trying to convert people.
And is there any background checks on them? Do they do any due diligence before they leave their human children with strangers so they can go out and find other strangers?
Two things about that. One is, I don't think so, obviously. But the other is, it's very possible these people don't really have criminal backgrounds, but hey, they now have access that they never had before.
Weird. Wait, hold on. Men in power suddenly are being corrupted? This is weird.
In 2019, NBC News spoke with 5 women who said they were assaulted by New Tribes Mission employees in the 1980s and 1990s. They said New Tribes covered up the abuse for years, scared them into silence by telling stories of Africans going to hell because they were not converted.
No.
Or missionaries ending up in foreign prisons if the allegations ever got out. The Christian group apparently used faith-based fear tactics to keep those kids quiet. Very despicable behavior. It's not surprising. In fact, here's one of the things NBC News found, that years earlier, in 2010, hearing about some of these allegations, the organization conducted an independent review into one of its schools in Senegal. That review found a culture of systemic abuse that included more than 20 kids. And by the time NBC News spoke with some of those survivors, a decade later, their assailants had never been punished for what they did. One of them said, the scariest thing is thinking they're still out there. Who knows what has happened since they've been back? So one of the attackers, NBC News found, was living in Georgia where he occasionally preached at a church.
Sure.
Yeah. So how bad was the situation? Consider this. When the independent investigators looked into the matter, they found an internal policy from 1992 in this mission group that explained how to handle allegations of abuse. It said anyone who abused a child of the same sex would be expelled from the group immediately and forever. But if you abused a child of the opposite sex, you could basically return in due time. Here's what it actually said.
Fucking kidding me?
If it is a heterosexual act, the person will be dismissed immediately, but could be considered for ministry again in the future, depending on the case. Oh, and if it occurs in the field, it is not necessary to report it to the Senegalese or U.S. authorities.
Why? Because they're in international waters on their little dorm? These people are villains.
Yeah. Like, that investigation...
I'm sorry, they think it being gay is the problem with men molesting children?
Yep. So that investigation made specific recommendations that seem like common sense. Like, all abusers needed to be fired. This is the independent group saying, here's what you do with this. All abusers need to be fired. Authorities need to be alerted about misconduct. You need to fund counseling costs for the survivors.
Perfect.
New Tribes Mission said, all right, we're working on it. And they're putting into place recurring child safety training for all members. And they are going to report 2 of the named abusers to local law enforcement. And then
local to Ecuador or local to U.S.?
Wherever they were at for this. I don't know if it was Senegal or the other place, the Philippines.
Oh.
But when NBC News reached out to local law enforcement, they had no idea an accused pedophile was living within their jurisdiction. So apparently it never reported. What about the counseling? In one survivor's case, she said New Tribes paid for some of it and then stopped because she reached a financial limit.
Cool.
And then New Tribes stopped working with that independent agency that released the report.
Oh,
and then,
how come?
And I'm sure this is a coincidence, New Tribes is like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to change our name. Because for some reason...
Oh my God. Our
working
SEO
out.
shit is
That's
down.
Exactly. They changed their name to Ethnos 360.
Well, fuck that name. Jesus fucking Christ.
So all of this was revealed in 2019 when NBC News published this report, right? It came out years after they had actually settled a lawsuit by one of the survivors. Ethnos 360, in response to that NBC report in 2019, Ethnos 360 released a statement saying, well, there are no words to describe how bad we feel about all of this. We recognize that mistakes have been made, ... Today's leaders have a different and better understanding and training to address abuse issues than was available to the leaders during those early years.
I'm waiting for an apology.
Since then, our organization has incorporated significant child safety training, updated policies, and incorporated extensive screening and background checks that we repeat every few years. Ethnos 360 will continue to review our policies and safety procedures to better safeguard children. Now, calling repeated acts of child abuse and the refusal to report those acts mistakes drastically understates just how awful the criminal behavior was.
I would have loved to hear them say the people who are responsible for these deeds have been dismissed from our group, or we have a no tolerance policy for, zero tolerance policy for harassment.
Mistakes have been made. They acknowledged it.
This world is terrible.
So they said they were going to do better moving forward, right? This is in 2019 when that report comes out. Well, last September, NBC News published another story detailing how years after those promises were made, there was a new lawsuit against this group that said the abuse continued, this time in the United States. And the plaintiff in that case said the group failed to protect her despite all their assurances to the contrary. The complainant says that both the girl and her alleged abuser, also female, was living with their families on campus while their fathers, she said, it was one of my peers who abused me. Both of our dads were working in the field as missionaries. And the lawsuit says the abuse took place over several years.
Oh, no.
It ranged from unwanted touching of the survivor's chest and genital areas to penetration with a stick and hairbrush.
No!
Yeah.
Stick?
A stick. It accuses Ethnos 360 of failing to provide any education or training regarding anything related to peer-on-peer child abuse to anyone living on their campuses and failing to adequately investigate the allegations.
Wow.
She also said the alleged perpetrator may have victimized other children and may be a victim of sexual abuse herself, yet Ethnos 360 made no effort to find out where this girl, the abuser, would have learned about sexual conduct like this.
Or what she did after this. Oh, my God.
Now, the lawsuit says the girl's family told the ministry's director of child safety about the situation when they heard about it.
They have a director of child
They
safety?
did after the NBC News
Is it a tortoise?
He didn't do much to prevent abuse. Not only did he allow the girl who was allegedly doing all this to be around other children by herself, he told the survivor's family that what occurred was not sexual abuse, but rather, quote, inappropriate sexual behavior between peers. So the family...
God, they love to relabel things, huh?
Dude, the family was so mad about this, they went to the ministry's, head guy, who also dismissed their concerns. His name is Larry Brown. He was the CEO of Ethnos 360. They went to him in 2022 to discuss all this. And Brown allegedly told them to leave things between God and others because it would be hard on everyone to redo everything.
These people.
Yeah. So since then, and again, this is a couple years ago, this lawsuit came out last year.
Okay.
Ethnos 360 has tried to have this case dismissed in court, saying it's not our problem because the alleged assaults didn't happen under our supervision, but rather in private homes that were on their property. But again, you would think all these allegations and then the allegations about the ministry ignoring the allegations would eventually lead this ministry to shut down or take this stuff seriously. But no, because a couple of weeks ago, NBC News issued yet another report about Ethnos 360.
Oh my God.
And it says the group has been sued again for failing to offer help to the family of a child despite publicly saying they would do that.
Is this the same child we've been talking about?
Different. This is a woman named Kayla McLean, and she says in the lawsuit she was only 5 years old in 2005. She was living in Indonesia with her family. She shared a house with another family that had a daughter about her age, and the dad in that family, his name is Nate Horling, and according to the lawsuit, the alleged abuse by Horling started with inappropriate touching while her dad was playing with her. Afterward, Horling would allegedly tell McLean, the girl, he was sorry, he instructed her not to tell anyone, and blamed her for what occurred.
Cool. Because 5-year-olds can definitely deal with that.
He allegedly told this girl when her clothes were off that she had a pretty body and it made him want to do things with it. And here's the thing. In 2009, she says, now she's 9 years old, the two families moved to a different part of Indonesia, and this man assaulted her. She was playing with her friend, the guy's daughter, with their clothes off. I don't know. When this guy entered the room, he told Kayla to go into the closet, made her lie on the floor. He assaulted her. And then he told her what he did to her was her fault because she had her clothes off. He denies all this. A few years later, she told her parents that she had engaged in sexual conduct with other kids. I guess they had experimented, right, with each other. But the lawsuit says that's supposed to be a sign that a child is being abused.
Yeah.
So the parents, to their credit, reported this to the child safety team in Indonesia, but the response was muted. They treated this as sexual exploration, not worth examining. They never bothered to ask, hey, Kayla, how did you learn to do any of this stuff? You're 9. You should not know this, right? And it wasn't until after that, struggling with her own mental health, when she told her parents, I've been abused by another guy, my friend's dad. She didn't want to file charges at the time, her lawyer said, because her emotional state was too fragile at the time.
How old is she? Is this when she's 9 or is this later?
This happened when she was 9. This lawsuit is coming. She's now, I assume, 25, right? Yeah. But this is exactly the sort of situation that if you were trained in these issues, you would know how to handle them. Ethnos 360 clearly not prepared. Kayla finally reported all this formally to the organization in 2021. And she thought she was sending this to an independent investigators. And the website where your Ethnos 360 says, hey, if something happened, here's how you report it. She thought it was going to independent investigators, known as IHART, iHeart.
Okay.
She didn't realize that's just another extension of the ministry. It's like the Mormon church has a helpline that bishops are supposed to call, and it's run by their lawyers. And of course, their obligation is to protect the church, not the victims. iHeart exists to protect Ethnos 360 from its own staff. So you can guess how that went. They provided no counseling, offered no counseling, did not report the allegations. This lawsuit accuses Ethnos 360 of negligence in failing to protect her from abuse and failing to provide adequate training to employees to identify and report child abuse. The lawsuit actually says one of iHeart investigators told Kayla it would be ideal if your memories turned out to be false so that you can move on and not focus on it.
Oh,
and then they said her situation was outside of their team's mandate, and they would hand her files over to another team for what Kayla then called more trauma-inducing interviews. And she said the investigators did not seem to know what they were doing. They didn't behave in a way that demonstrated knowledge or experience with the trauma-informed interview. I mean, it seems clear Ethnos 360 wants to pretend to help abuse victims and actually help them. So instead of cracking down on abusers, they're just looking the other way. It would honestly be cheaper and easier at this point to do the right thing. But the organization is acting...
You mean shut the whole program down?
Yeah. They're acting like acknowledging the very real problem would deter from their religious mission and, turn off donors. And maybe it should, yeah.
Maybe it absolutely... maybe... Oh my God, he could go to jail. Yeah, sounds like he deserves to jail.
They're so hell-bent on converting random people that they refuse to protect the families who carry out their orders.
Truly.
They would rather let children suffer than shut down. And I don't know if that's religious delusion or willful ignorance, but either way, NBC News has done more for these survivors than this ministry ever has. And if you're donating to the ministry, you're committing a sin, if not abetting more crimes. By the way, this is a side note. In 2020, as COVID was happening around the world, when it was still called New Tribes Mission, they purchased a helicopter and bragged about it on their website. Why did they purchase a helicopter? Their website described it as an attempt to, quote, contact and convert isolated indigenous groups in the remote Western Amazon.
What the fuck, dog?
Yeah. Which again,
as
people learned with John Allen Chow, there's a reason you don't contact those tribes, not because they don't want to be contacted.
Which they don't.
But it's you may have diseases that they are not immune to. You could kill them all off because you're so hell-bent on trying to convert them.
And I'm sorry, is there nobody in your community who needs your help? This is the thing that frustrates me about Christianity is that they, again, the way a sin is a sin, if they're so single-minded on their focus of converting people that any other consequences are dismissed. Why? Why? I know you're all about trying to spread the good news, but there's Jehovah's Witnesses at State and, on State Street in Chicago. go do it there. Why do you need to go to like this? You don't speak their language. What could you possibly be thinking? Like these people are living in this fantasy world where they like land their helicopter in a field, I guess.
And everyone will come running up to it.
Running
They're like, whoa, we thought everyone forgot about us.
Oh, a Bible. Gee, I can use this in my daily life.
Thankfully, I'm literate in your language. Thank you.
It's fucking appalling. It's appalling with the way they use their resources. And they should be embarrassed.
I mean, that's the least of it. Yeah. That's all I got.
Oh, really? Just that?
Anyway.
I'm fucking exhausted.
Yep. You can go to patreon.com/friendlyatheistpodcast to support the work we do. You can also leave a review on the iTunes. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate that all the time. If you go to friendlyatheistpodcast.com, there's a tab for merch. You can get the merch.
All kinds of merch with my dog on it. You can also leave a review on iTunes if that's your jam. This one is from That Other Guy, 1985. Love the show. Jessica's laugh is awesome. End of review.
Oh, nice.
This is what I am looking for, my friends.
5 stars.
5 stars.
Excellent.
Yes, that's all we need.
All right, we have a bonus episode coming up. We will talk about...
Ooh, okay, I have a lot to talk about, but I also have to leave pretty soon.
Excellent. What are you going to focus on?
So yesterday, I just had the most magical day of my life. I went downtown by myself.
Tell us in the bonus.
And I saw, I want to tell people what happened so they know what to tune in for. I saw Hadestown for the first time by myself, matinee, front row, cried a lot. Anyway, it was a magical day, and then that's it. I don't know.
Love it. All right, we'll see you next week.
Yes. Bye.